So Bitcoin comes in, it promises to be this decentralized system that doesn't require all this infrastructure, that doesn't require all these weapons to defend it. All it requires is an energy bill, an electricity bill. One of the most common critiques of Bitcoin is that, oh, it uses too much energy. And a second critique of Bitcoin is saying, oh, nothing backs it. Well, those are contradictory statements. It's the energy that backs Bitcoin. What backs Bitcoin is the energy it takes to defend Bitcoin's network and to defend Bitcoin against the duplication of the set of numbers, okay? What defends the US dollar is this missile here. This is our stinger. This is our bullet. This is what defends our dollar. I always say online that political currencies, because that's what these are. These things I'm talking about, these are political currencies. What backs political currencies is the barrel of a gun. You cannot create more dollars, because if you start creating more dollars, someone will come after you. You will be arrested. You will be found out. You know, you will be arrested for counterfeiting the dollar. Likewise, if you're a different nation, you can't just start making your dollars because they're defended by the barrel of a gun. Your taxes and preventing counterfeit. The supply of dollars is defended by this brute force physical energy cost. And so, in the same way with Bitcoin, except it doesn't require a centralized missile to take out a centralized point that's producing this honey, that's producing this dollars out of thin air. Instead, it's a decentralized way of having a wall of energy, and that if you're going to try to reproduce a dollar, first you have to get through our armory, first you have to get through the energy wall that we put up in the same way that bees put up an energy wall. But with Bitcoin, the wall is electricity itself. You would have to put up more electricity than the rest of the network combined. Now, how much energy does Bitcoin use? How much hash does Bitcoin control? How do we quantify that? Well, right now, all Bitcoin uses more energy than the US Navy. So, continuing with the Army and Navy and Air Force, military, and weapons metaphors, I mean, that's a pretty strong one. All the nuclear submarines out there, all the aircraft carriers, all these things, Bitcoin uses more energy to them. You know, I'm looking at all these massive pieces of military industry. It's just incredible. Obviously, most of these things here today are from wars of decades past. You know, none of these are up to today's standards of military equipment. You know, and just the amount of energy it took in World War II, in World War I, in these other wars to defend ourselves, it's just tremendous. It's just massive. And to think that Bitcoin is already at this tiny amount of adoption we have today, using more energy than the U.S. Navy, is just incredible. It's just amazing to think about that all those aircraft carriers, all those planes, all those submarines, everything is dwarfed by the amount of energy that Bitcoin is using. And that's the beautiful thing with Bitcoin, that as the honeypot of Bitcoin grows and grows and grows, as the honey becomes more valuable. Today, at the time of recording, the market cap of Bitcoin is about $500 billion, $500 billion. That's the size of the honeypot of Bitcoin. And and the beautiful thing is that as that grows, the economic incentive to contribute to the network, get paid from the network, and provide more electricity, provide more energy to the network to defend it, grows and increases. Meaning that it becomes exponentially more difficult to distort Bitcoin's supply, it becomes exponentially more difficult to counterfeit Bitcoins, to reproduce more Bitcoins. And so, to me, that's an amazing thing, because it's like this, it's priceless. You know, how do you price a Roman chariot in terms of these weapons here? Like how do you price that? You know, what would Napoleon have paid in order to acquire this? What would a Roman emperor have paid to acquire this? It's priceless. You know, if at any point in history, you know, up till very recent, this was the dominating weapon, crushing everything else before it. The horse, the chariot, the bow, the arrow, the spear. This is priceless in terms of inferior forms of technology. And likewise, you know, what is a Boeing 747 priced in terms of goats? Or what is this phone I'm recording on priced in terms of pigeons, right? Delivering messages and scrolls. It's like these things are inherently priceless. And so how do you begin to price Bitcoin, something that does not require political incentives in order to manage its scarcity, versus something that does require political incentives to manage scarcity, and therefore 100% of the time inevitably means that it no longer becomes scarce, but increases in abundance as the incentive increases to dump these political currency units on the rest of the world in order for their honey, in order for their resources. It's priceless. And so, you know, I'm really comfortable going out there and saying that Bitcoin is going to these really high, quote-unquote, price targets in terms of political currency, because that's the only thing that makes logical sense. What is the price of a Venezuelan bolivar in terms of a dollar? Well, it's basically priceless, Because at no point is the bolivar going to become increasingly valuable in terms of the dollar, because the dollar is backed by the superior form of energy, and it's going to only be backed by that perpetually in the future, and so it's only going to become more valuable, Or, let's say, how do you price the Argentinian peso in terms of the dollar? Argentina just elected a pro-Bitcoin president. They're a G20 nation. It's a really big deal, in my opinion. And how do you, at what point do you begin taking profits in your pesos for dollars? If you look at the dollar in terms of pesos, it looks like the dollar is just skyrocketing in value, doubling and doubling and doubling in value again and again. But if you were to go to Argentina, they would not say that the dollar's going up. They would say the peso's going down. You're making a mistake. You think the dollar's going up in value when it's not. It's just that you're pricing it in terms of political currency that is inferior. You're pricing it in terms of the Argentinian peso, which is an inferior communications mechanism for sharing energy with each other. And it's the same exact thing with Bitcoin. People think, oh, Bitcoin's going up. Oh, wow, you must be making money because Bitcoin's doubled this year in 2023. It's like, no. No, Bitcoin has not gone up 100%, 120% in 2023. No, the dollar has gone down 58% in 2023. And we all know this. You go out in the real world, everything's more expensive. Everyone's talking about inflation. Oh, prices going up. Oh, that's crazy. We all know that the dollar is becoming less valuable. This is because of the honeypot problem. This is because there was a massive incentive to create numbers out of thin air and to act as a monetary god, saying, I can create energy out of thin air, and I can distribute it onto you, and I can get away with this distortion, I can get away with this lie, because I have the biggest gun. And so, because it's this thing that it takes a long time for us to psychologically get over, this mindset shift that, wait, it's not that the Bitcoin's going up in terms of the US dollar, it's that the US dollar is going down in terms of Bitcoin. It's not that the dollar is going up in terms of Argentinian pesos, it's that the peso is going down faster than the dollar, and it's simply this unit bias that we have trying to equate the two. So, where is Bitcoin going from here? I don't know, but at any given point, at any point in the future, it's going to be vastly more probable that Bitcoin becomes more valuable in the future in terms of inferior energy. Using guns to defend the numerical system that we call money is ancient technology. It's archaic. It's devastating, and it's sad that we have to build memorials of all the people that have given their lives to defend this system. And obviously we will always need a military. That's not my point. But my point is that the best way that we can honor our veterans, that we can honor the men and women that serve our country and that serve all the militaries of the world, the best way we can honor them is to reduce the probability for war, to reduce the need for war, and reduce the need to have a barrel of a gun defend our jar of honey. Bitcoin is the most respectful and the most honorable thing we can do for our veterans, and saying that we appreciate your sacrifice, and we are going to build an innovation that does not require sacrifices similar to yours in the future as much as we possibly can. When I'm filming this here in 2023, 3 years ago, the United States of America surpassed a 130% debt to GDP level. Now, this has happened many times before. In fact, in the last 225 years, this has happened dozens and dozens and dozens of times. 98% of the nations or empires or states that surpass this debt level, 130% debt to GDP, ended one of two states within 15 years. Either hyperinflation or war. Okay? So for the U.S.'s example, we hit that level in 2020. 15 years from 2020 is 2035. Historically speaking, I'm not predicting this, historically speaking, there's a 98% chance that by 2035 we either end in hyperinflation or war. I'm talking about the United States here. There are many other nations across the planet, Singapore, Italy, Japan, on and on and on. There are many nations hitting this point simultaneously. In my opinion, that's because this is the first time we've had a global rise in productivity in the late 20th century, and this first global period of a global reserve currency, the post-World War II era. Before World War I and World War II was the British pound, which was much more localized, and today the world's much more global than it's ever been. And so we have a cascading problem here. We have more countries than ever, with more bigger guns than ever, that simultaneously are racing towards this path that we know there's only those two destinations, either default or hyperinflation or war. And so the reason I talk about Bitcoin, the reason I do this, is because of that belief. Yes, you should consider buying Bitcoin to protect yourself against hyperinflation. But frankly, I hope that we have hyperinflation, because the only other result, the only other probable outcome is war.